Hey folks, Dennis here with Las Vegas Worm Farm and the Living Soil community. And it's time for our worm topic of the week. So what are we talking about this week? We're talking about how worm castings can take a basic soil or a soil that's been neglected and turn it into something that's actually living. And then we're going to talk about why they're one of the fastest ways and one of the best ways to upgrade your entire gardening system. Worm castings. Everybody thinks it's about the nutrients, but it's really about the microorganisms and the biology and the diversity that these worm castings bring. That's what it's really about. It's not about the nutrients. People have this mixed up. When you look at the nutrients in worm castings, there's really very few. There's a lot less. The worms and everybody else in that system have processed and broken down a lot of those things. So that can't be it, right? If you've ever looked at a bag of worm castings, you look at the nutritional value of it, the NPK, right? It's always going to be 0, 0, 0 or 1, 0, 1 or 0.5, 0.5. It's extremely low. And when you're talking about nutrients, you can get way more nutrients from compost. So what are we using worm castings for? It's actually the biology that we're using. That's what we're getting out. And that's why I always preach and talk about, if you're going to get a bag of worm castings, you want to make sure first that it got some holes in it. Second, that it's moist, right? Because these are the things that are going to keep living things alive. We got to have things just like us, microorganisms just like us. They need air, water, right? They need a food source. And if you take that away and you put them in a sealed bag, those things are going to die. Now, some of them might, hibernate. They kind of turn into a cyst, but there's no real way to know whether or not those are going to wake up. And if there's not enough oxygen, not enough food, and not enough moisture, they're just going to die. And who knows how long they've been sitting on that shelf, how long they were on a pallet, how long they were in a warehouse, and how long it was from the time you got it from the time it was actually produced. So no microbes mean no movement. That means the nutrients stay put where they are. So you got to have the biology. Worm castings, they act like a microbial boost, like a Kickstarter. I think that's the right word I'm looking for. They're like a Kickstarter, right? They get everything going in the soil. If you don't have biology, you have nothing moving, no nutrients, everything stays put, right? There's no movement. Nothing's going to happen. Now, if you're using chemical fertilizers, that's a different story. Things will happen. You'll bypass the microbes totally. But if you're trying to grow organically and naturally, mimicking what Mother Nature does, then without those microbes, nothing occurs. So if you're transitioning from a system or you're trying to get your system up and thriving or flourishing, then the kickstart for that is going to be worm castings. It's a quick way to get the microbes in there, get them established so that they can start doing what they need to and help your plant out and get them all the food that they would ever need, because the average soil, believe it or not, has all the nutrients that a plant would ever need. It's just not available. Yeah. And if you don't believe me, go check out some of my other videos, or we talk about it there. The biology in the worm castings are the things that get things going. They get it moving. You got to have that if you're looking at trying to grow an organic system. And when I mean grow, I mean actually get it to grow and then get it to a point where it will actually start producing for you and the plant. The microorganisms are actually what do all of this work. They're the ones that are breaking down these organic compounds, right, in the soil. So they even break down sand, silt, and clay particles, believe it or not. They have these different types of acids or enzymes that will actually break down all of these things, and they will eat that. That's not necessarily where your nutrients come from, because it's more of a predator to prey model, where the prey is doing all of the hard work. The predator comes, eats the prey, and then the predator will release the nutrients into the soil for your plants. That's actually what's occurring. Those predators are going to be your bigger microorganisms, which are things like testate amoebas, your arcelias, right? Your ciliates, things like that. Those are your protozoas that are going to be preying on your bacteria. In addition to that, that's just part of the microorganisms that are at work there. You also got the fungi that are pulling in the other half of that work, right? They're doing a lot of that nutrient cycling, breaking things down, but they're also the highways or the transportation for a lot of these nutrients, moving it from one location to the other. Because, the smaller microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, or bacteria, protozoas, nematodes, they don't really move that far, but fungi can reach long distances because they connect things. They connect one location to another. So these microorganisms are what break down organic material. And the more of those you have, the faster this occurs and the more nutrients you have available in the soil in a soluble state for your plant. So if you find this type of stuff interesting, do me a favor, give me a like, give me a share. Only about 10% of my viewers right now are clicking the like button, and there's more people like you out there that like this video. So by you clicking that button, YouTube will send it out to more people just like you so they can enjoy this information as well. So let's get back to it. Improving your soil, it's everybody wants to do it, right? Everybody wants that loam soil. Everybody wants that nice texture, that, that crumbly soil that just holds all the moisture and it's very rich and dark brown. But in order to get there, you have to be able to ensure that there's air, water in that soil, right? And the reason for that is because that crumb structure that you're looking for, it's actually created not just by the sand, silt, and clay particles, but it's actually created by the microorganisms. Remember those acids and enzymes we were talking about? Well, they create glues. Yeah, it's crazy, right? They create what we will call a glue, and they will glue these particles together. And when they do that, that's what creates that crumb structure in the soil that we are all looking for, right? When they do that, your clay particles now go apart. You still have a clay soil. It's just they change the texture of it because they've glued things together. If you have a sandy soil, they will take organic material, glue it to those sandy particles, right? And now all of a sudden, your soil has the ability to be able to hold more moisture and take on more nutrients. That's not leaching things out. In the clay soil, it aggregates things. So now roots can go deeper, water can infiltrate, right? Air can get down there. It's not all just locked out. The microbes do this. And if you want to improve your soil structure, you got to have the biology there. But before you put the biology there, you have to make sure that you have air and water in that system, because all living things need air and water to be able to survive. So you got to have all that stuff. Once you have all that stuff in there, your soil will now all of a sudden transform, right? Some of us struggle with holding moisture in our soil. Some of us don't, but some of us do. The first thing I will tell you is that you need to get mulch. And the majority of people that I talk to when we have a conversation, what you're missing is mulch, right? So get some mulch and throw it on top. If you already have that and you're still having problems holding on to moisture, then your problem is the microorganisms. The microorganisms, they will break down all the organic material and they will create organic compounds that have the ability to hold on to more moisture. That ability will allow your soil to hold more moisture, which means that you can water less. That means you can take a vacation, go away for a little while, and your plants will be A-okay. The next thing all these microorganisms will actually do is they will actually suppress and outcompete. Let's talk about suppression first. They will actually suppress disease, pests, and pathogens. Crazy. Some microorganisms in the soil will actually create like a barrier around the root zone, right? Protecting the plant. In another video, I'm sure we talked about root exudates and them feeding microorganisms. Well, they don't want to ruin that. So they're going to protect the root of the plant, right, from diseases and pathogens, because it's in turn getting food. Why wouldn't I, right? Like, I'll keep, you're going to feed me, then I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing if you keep feeding me. And that's what's occurring in the soil. The biology has the ability to be able to do that. You got to have the diversity, right? But that's what's occurring in your soil. That biology is protecting it. It doesn't just happen in the root zone. It also happens on the leaf surfaces, right? If you've ever heard of a tea, those teas are foliar applications, and usually we will get those high in bacteria and different types of microorganisms, so they will protect the leaf surface, so they don't have pathogens or disease and pests don't have the ability to be able to get to the leaf surface to be able to even cause damage. That's actually how we use the tea. So all of these microorganisms that come from worm castings will help your plant do all of these things. If you want good soil, it starts with the biology. If you want a healthy plant, it starts with the biology. Where do I get the biology? Well, it comes from worm castings. The majority of it comes from worm castings. There's other sources out there, but my favorite source to go to is worm castings because of the diversity that they bring. Bugs in the jugs are usually monocultured, right? Compost has some microorganisms. Bokashi has less than compost. But really, when you're talking about diversity and you want all these different players, the players that cycle nutrients, the players that break down sand, silt, and clays, the players that have the ability to be able to protect my plant, you're going to get more of those players if you're looking at worm castings. Plus, it's just an all natural way to mimic what Mother Nature is already doing, right? In a healthy soil system, if you've gone anywhere else where you have nice soil, you probably have worms in the soil and you probably have plants growing. If you don't have worms, that means there's something wrong with your soil. Well, that's all we have for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all next week.